So you're going to see volatility. And I've always reminded you guys in the do not fuck it up mantra, part of that is expect 30, 35% pullbacks. Could be less, but just expect them.
The Bitcoin price has began to tumble down as much as 15% from the day the ETFs launched.
And that often happens when you get to this kind of 61.8% Fibonacci level in the first leg of the bull run. It often corrects sharply, people get washed out, leverage is cleared out, and then the real run starts. And the real run is the run to all-time highs and beyond.
And with the real bull run typically not starting until after the halving.
That usually starts around the halving.
Due to the supply shock.
So I'm guessing there's maybe a month or two of chop. And chop in crypto markets is like down 30%. It's just sideways chop. So just be careful out there. I could be wrong, could keep sailing higher, but you know, it just feels like it's trading a bit heavy. And even if it does as a spurt higher, I don't think it makes much progress yet.
Now, how much farther will the BTC price fall, if any? And this is not a surprise for those of you who subscribe to Altcoin Daily and watched this video from a month ago. You were ready.
My thoughts are that we probably will see a small sell-off on the BlackRock ETF approval.
Well, watch the whole video because Raoul Pal, global macro investor Raoul Pal, even though it was an hour live stream, in just 2 minutes, perfectly articulates why the Bitcoin ETF mania listing was obviously always going to be a sell the news event.
Anybody who was an investor in Bitcoin in 2011-12 was like a Series A investor. 2013 cycle, maybe Series B, 2015, 16, Series C, the last cycle, Series D, we've just IPO'd it. And usually when IPOs happen in strong markets like this, it reminds me a lot of the late 90s. And I was trading a lot then. I was at Goldman as well then. And what you found is after the IPO, it would launch and it would be choppy as hell for a while. Sometimes it would sell off quite sharply. Facebook sold off really sharply as people took profits, repositioned. Now, don't forget, a lot of people have front run this ETF. So they were going to want to unwind.
By the way, these ETFs were incredibly successful.
Many of those are going to switch to ETH that I've talked about before.
Ethereum is stealing some of that market share as people prepare for what's next.
They think, rightly so, that ETH is the most likely candidate for the next ETF. And if Bitcoin went up 100% because of this ETF, ETH will go up 300% because it's less liquid, put the same amount of money in.
Now we go into this much more in our most recent video. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink goes all in on crypto, but really it's just been Grayscale who had the outflows, which was always expected.
There's a lot of people unwinding the GBTC arbitrage, closing that position.
Because they already had the assets.
Selling out, moving into a different ETF. There's a lot of shenanigans going on. And you can see that with the net flows. There was 4.5 billion or whatever of total flows. The net flows are much smaller, 700 million or so. It's still the biggest ever ETF launches in history as the series, but it's all to play for.
But what's next? And by the way, most other channels won't share this with you, but I will. Update on the BlackRock iShares holdings. Yesterday, I reported that BlackRock moved 50% of their ETF into cash. That was right before the pullback. Well, today they updated and they did indeed, as I thought, buy the dip. And they are now back 100% in Bitcoin, meaning they sold when everybody was bullish, and then they bought when you were too scared to. How did they know? Well, we have a new set of whale traders in the game. The ETF fund managers can trade in and out of cash, any currency, Forex included. Now make sure you click subscribe. This is such valuable content. And in this final 2-minute clip, Raoul explains what's next and what to expect in the coming months.
This ETF, it's going to attract people because the markets have been strong. Last year, crypto, Bitcoin itself was 160%, right? That doesn't go unnoticed, considering even the NASDAQ managed 50%. So it's like 3x the NASDAQ. But let's start with the RAAs, the investment advisors and the financial advisors. Those guys aren't on Twitter. They have no idea what any of this is going on. All the drama that played out and the false tweet and all of that that total goat rodeo, they don't know any of this. The first they will hear about this is when they pick up Barron's on Saturday morning with a cup of coffee. and they'll go, oh, a Bitcoin ETF. And barons will probably have some cynicism in the article, let's assume. And they're like, well, that's interesting, but I'm not sure it's for my clients. And they go about their business, and then they go and see Jack, their big client, on the golf course that weekend. And Jack says, hey, what do you think of the Bitcoin ETF? And the RAA will repeat what he read in Barron's and what he saw on Fox News. He's based in, let's call it Cincinnati, Ohio. And Jack will ask him, and he'll feel a little bit silly. And then maybe next week, he starts reading a few more articles and a few more positive things come out. Then he starts thinking, maybe I should do something about this. And a couple of other clients ask him. And eventually he goes and has his steak dinner with his other friend, Mark, who runs the tire franchise in Cincinnati. And Mark's got tons of money and is a bit racy and likes investments like this. And before you know it, he starts building an order book and getting his clients in. He can see they're interested. He's incentivized by the sales process and the commissions. And before you know it, he's mobilized. It's the same with all the RIAs. This takes time. They're not smiling, oh my God, there's a Bitcoin ETF out. Let's all go. It doesn't work like that. It's a relationship business built over time. And this is, all across the United States. It's not New York City in a dealing room. It's a very different world out there.
Now, BlackRock continues to add to their position. BlackRock's IBIT holdings, now over 11,600 Bitcoin, but with other top altcoins separating themselves from the pack. Hedera Network approves 408 million of HBAR for ecosystem growth, or Polkadot, or Cardano, or Solana.
My view, and I've made this very clear, is Solana's my favorite horse in the race of the big ones. I think the first phase is always Bitcoin outperforming. Next is Ethereum. It's at this point in the cycle when the global liquidity turns higher. And when global liquidity turns higher and you've got a catalyst like the ETH ETF, it'll start picking steam. We saw that the last couple of days. It was like, wow, okay, ETH is really trying to outperform. I think it bottomed on the massive ETH wedge chart that I put on Twitter yesterday. And I think it will continue higher over time. And I think ETH massively outperforms Bitcoin for the rest of this cycle. So that's the kind of flow, is Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, with Solana at the top of the pie. Again, I could be wrong. You don't need to follow my advice and my weighting.
I'm going to keep following this market, subscribing to the smartest investors, and then sharing that with you.
So that's why it takes time. It's the same with any of the institutions who might be thinking about it. Some fund manager who thinks I can sneak it into my portfolio now and not tell my risk manager that I've got crypto. I'll just sneak it in as an equity and hope they don't find out. Same with hedge funds. So that's all to come.
Like always, see you tomorrow.